Hey everybody, this is Olan Hodges. We are part of Group 3 for CIT261 in winter 2017. And with us, I've got Tiff, Mark, Jan, and Dan as part of our group. And we just wanted to go over our application from start to finish. So first off, we wanted to start talking about the selection. So Mark, do you have any ideas that you wanted to throw out about the selection?
Well, I think one of the things that when we went through the process of selecting, a lot of ideas came up, and I think it was pretty quickly we zeroed in on the topics that we enjoyed the most, and that's I think why we zeroed in on eating, because it had all the elements that we needed for the project, and so that I think is what attracted, at least myself to that particular app.
Yeah. I think with the biking and the hiking app, it was going to be a little difficult to track the user's location all the time, and there weren't any good HTML specific calls that we could do for that.
Yeah, I also think particularly with this one, the fact that, it had the most in common with all of us. Everybody eats, not all of us are bikers. So I think that was a big part as to why we wanted to go with this particular app.
Good point.
Yeah. So as part of our selection, we ended up picking a restaurant finder app. So then we moved on to our design phase. So to start the design phase off, we basically put a skeleton together. Like any type of project, you always start with a good plan, and things always end up having to change down the road. So we ended up having to add things here and there based on the different functions that we found out we had to add into it and design changes. But most of all, we tend to go with the flow. We work together really well, and I thought we did good with being flexible on the design. Tiff, what did you think about the design phase?
I am not a big fan of design, like pre-design, I guess. I'm much more of a fly by the seat of my pants, and I think doing this project, when you're doing something on your own, I think that works better. And so since this was a collaborative project, it definitely, that design outline that we had, I think was definitely an excellent jumping off point for us to all be on the same page.
I totally agree. Without any type of plan, it's hard to get a whole team to work together.
Yeah, it kind of keeps you on track too. If you really think about it, you look at when you do a pre-design, there's a lot of, you look at your colors, your fonts, all the different things that are incorporated into an app, and that kind of keeps you on track. And so I think that was a good point. I agree with you, Tiff, because it was the first time I worked as a group like this, and it was difficult because you want to do one thing, but that's not your part. So it was kind of fun.
Jan, any thoughts on the design phase?
I do. I think that the flow chart that we had helped us to eliminate unnecessary efforts.
Yep.
What functions could be used twice, and we knew added and set up by itself.
Yep.
So it actually saved us a lot of time.
Yeah, I definitely have to say that the design phase and the planning phase is always the most difficult for me, but it always ends up paying off in some shape, form, or fashion. So we got through that phase and we moved on to the realization part, which had different obstacles all on its own. Just to kick some of these discussions off, there were a couple of issues that we had. First off, in our discussion or our utilization of the geolocation feature, come to find out that it requires you to use SSL. So for security purposes, I mean, you wouldn't want to send someone's longitude and latitude across the internet unencrypted. But so we ended up having to set up our server so that it would have a certificate and it would encrypt everything. On top of that, we also had a CORS failure for utilizing the Google API. Apparently, they say they support CORS for the cross-origin resource sharing is what that stands for. But we ended up having to change that so that it would actually function the way it's supposed to. because every forum we looked through showed that we needed to use the Google API, but that's not part of this class. You can't use an API, or you're not supposed to. So long story short, we ended up setting up a proxy on our server, and it worked fine and dandy. But those are things that, as part of the realization, ended up being challenges that we had to overcome and had to roll with the punches on that. Anybody else have any more specifics that they want to talk on? So, Mark, I know you went on the navigation portion. What did you want to talk about for that?
On the navigation, I think, because the framework and everything was there, we knew what colors were, we knew everything that was there. One of the things that, the coding of that was ready. But what I did notice when you start looking at the app, I think the navigation is one of the key things that people look at. And if it's easy to work with, then it's easy for them to stay on your app and keep working with it. If it's difficult, then they're going to just go somewhere else. And so I noticed on there that the colors in that do make a difference. Lunch, one of our logo itself is bright red, and so that's kind of a center focal point. And as you use the mobile app itself or the menu, it was bright red also, and that's one of the reasons why we brought up in our conversations, hey, what about the colors, guys? Is this going to be kind of distractive, and so forth? And so we changed that to a teal, which I think had a different feel to it, a little bit more pleasing effect to it. And then also notice as the menu, the mobile menu is all the way down the left side, that it covered a lot of information and didn't need to, and a lot of blank space. So your eyes were wandering down this app and this screen for no reason. And so those were the two main reasons why I felt, in that portion of it, it needed to change, so that you could shorten the app, just bring it to where the two features were, the two options, and the color to offset that, so it utilized all the color schemes a little bit better. That's really it.
Okay. And also in regard to navigation and just kind of ease of use on the user side, Tiff brought up a good point towards the end of the project, where and this is part of also working in a group. Like Mark mentioned that he used the app primarily on the phone, where I primarily used the app on my desktop. But Tiff pointed out that if you're hovering over after you go into the actual selection, you've selected how many miles close you want the location to be. As you hover over it with your mouse, it didn't indicate with a cursor that it was an interactable item, and it was an easy, quick change and literally took a matter of seconds to do. But I think the end user experience, it made a big difference. So working with a group and seeing multiple people's eyes makes a big difference.
So Tiff, how was your experience with the realization portion of our project?
So I think it's interesting. In every group, you have different dynamics, and like Mark is talking about the colors and the drawing the eye down along the app. I think there's programming, and then there's also the aesthetics of what you're doing, and they work together. But I think sometimes it's easy to try to pull them separate, right? To go, oh, it works fine, so that works great, But like Mark says, as far as user friendly and engaging with the user, those colors and the size of things and the typography and all that, I think it's just kind of interesting to me, the way it all kind of comes together, kind of the psychology of web programming with the design, I guess. Yeah,
user experience is definitely something that we have to take hand in hand with our programming. So, and Jan, how was your experience?
I learned a lot, working on it, and I did most of the local storage coding, which I found interesting in that it followed the same patterns as it did when we were doing the lessons for it. There wasn't a whole lot of difference between them, so that kind of helped me out a lot. in solidifying the lessons that we had. And, in testing it out, it managed to actually work where it saves, and then if you click out of it and you come back, the save functions are still there. So that was a good aspect as well.
Okay. So one thing that I wanted to cover as part of our original, as part of our project, was the teamwork. When we were looking at the topics within the emails for the rubric, we were looking at all of them, and I felt teamwork was one of the things we needed to have on that list. So we decided it was best to add that on there and kind of talk about how we felt the team worked together, how we were dedicated to the project, and how we wanted to not just help ourselves succeed, but help the group as a whole succeed. I know in my experience, we in other classes I've had lots of experiences where getting us together was also always a problem. So this was one of the few classes I've had where we were able to get together consistently, and on very rare occasions have people that weren't able to attend. Anybody else have any other experiences with the teamwork and what they felt we did well together?
So I think that you effectively took on the role of project manager. And, I think when you have a team of 2, maybe 3, it's not as important as having 5 people to, herding cats, right? Like trying to get everybody on the same page and going, rather than, how long we could have kicked around app ideas. Could have been a couple weeks before we settled on one. So I think that was something that worked really well. From the get-go, having a project manager type of personality, I guess, come out in you, Olan. I think for me, one of the hardest parts is working remotely and not all having real-time, view and access of code change real time. So that's, it works obviously, but I think for me personally, that's probably my hardest. But overall, we got it done, and I think it's a fairly good app. So.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments? Okay.
No, I think as a team, we worked well together. We helped each other out where we ran into problems, and communication was pretty good as we went through everything. So as a team, I think we did really well.
Thanks to Google. Google was definitely our buddy this semester. Mark,
well, I also think really, Olan, because you took on the lead as a team lead, it, like Tiffany said, it made a huge difference in the outcome of our semester, because when you have someone who can kind of organize what's going on, you can have a lot of chiefs or, whatever it is, but you have one person that says, okay, here's the, this is the direction we're going, and as we all collaborate together and talk and discuss it, that's, it worked out really well. And so I think you're right. This is one of the few that, we're all able to continually work together, consistently be here, and everybody contributed really well. So that's what, I really enjoyed about this semester in this group.
We all participated in the chats and emails and forum posts, etc. So it was extremely beneficial. Dan/Chuck, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I think for the most part, probably the most frustrating thing for you guys was when I changed my email name to Chuck, because I didn't want my real name on the internet. But as far as working as a group, I think that, when we tried to interact with each other, people were always willing to reach out and try and help each other out. So to help out with time, I know we're starting to get a little long. I'm going to leave it at that. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for your input on that. So just to have a real quick demonstration of the application, let me share my screen and we'll get to business here. So our application is called Lunch Served, Food at Your Fingertips. So long story short, what brought this to our minds is that it seems like every time we all want to go to lunch, it's difficult to figure out what places we want to go. I know my personal experience is I have literally a bunch of cats at work that we're trying to herd to a single place. So being able to pick a specific type, let's say Chinese, that we don't want to go more than 3 miles away, and then we're going to leave this in the minimum. Well, and we'll move it to a little bit cheaper side, and we'll hit this submit here. So all these different places come up that are Chinese. So we click on Panda Express here, and it brings up, it's at this location, has a rating of this type, and here's the schedule. You can click to go to their website. You can also save this for a future date. So once you save it, you can go over to the menu here on our saved section, and within here we've got all of our different saved items that we can call in. So here's that Panda Express that we had saved from earlier. We can delete it. And now that we close that out, it's gone from the list. So very simple app, makes use of a lot of AJAX calls to Google's Places API. But this works extremely well for all of us that need to have lunch on an occasion. So it also gives you some error checking with the miles. So if you leave it at 0 and try to search, it'll shake and tell you, hey, give me a whole number here. So that's where the CSS transform and the animations come into play, and our transitions come into play with our menu sliding in and out of view. So all in all, I'm extremely proud of our entire group. We've all worked really hard on this, and I think we did an extremely good job. And thank you guys for your time.